And we are live for another edition of the All Gas No Break Sports Show. I am one of your co-hosts, Nicholas Pavona, joined alongside, as always, by my co-host, Andrew Johnson. And Johnson, big week number 2 in college football, kind of one that maybe a lot of people were not expecting. We had 2 big upsets, maybe 3 if you want to count the last one that we'll talk about a little bit later on in the show, but some big upsets happening this past weekend. We had a top 25 matchup as well taking place in Norman, Oklahoma. And now going into week number 3, a whole new top 25 poll that we'll be breaking down a little bit later on in the show. A big slate for week number 3 as well, including right now looking at my math, 3 ranked matchups going into the week. We also have 3 other games that are going to be very highly contested, but a very interesting week too, Johnson, now heading into week number 3 of this college football season.
Yeah, after Saturday, we're approaching the 20% mark on the season already. As crazy as it sounds, it feels like we just got college football back, and now we're ready to talk about the postseason. So,
Right. And for one team in particular, I guess we could tie it right into our first part of our show today. One team's postseason hopes really took a damper, and now for them, as if it already wasn't bad enough with this loss that they had this past Saturday, their upcoming schedule gets even worse for them as the season will progress. How about the Florida Gators losing at home to South Florida this past weekend, 18-16, a game in which a lot of things went wrong for Florida in this one. Their offense just looked pretty bleak. They really couldn't get anything going. And if you look at the stats, I mean, it shows that they had pretty good, all around numbers in this game against South Florida. The problem for them mostly in this game was they just couldn't finish drives mostly. Their defense at the end, in the second half in particular, did not play the way that they were hoping going into the season. Byron Brown, the starting quarterback for South Florida, was a huge difference maker for the Bulls in this game. And Florida, it came down to late in the game, they had the ball. They had a fourth down opportunity in which they maybe could have gone for it. They just elected to punt the ball away, give South Florida the ball. And South Florida pretty much ran the clock out after that happened. They had a penalty that happened in a situation where we kind of saw similar to what happened in the NFL in week number 1 with Jalen Carter spitting on a player. We saw the same thing happen in this game for Florida. They had a player spit on someone. That led to South Florida getting a big penalty. Then they got a big run after that set them up in field goal range. They get the game-winning field goal as time expires to win 18-16 and shock the Gators in week number 2.
yeah, so let's talk about South Florida and what this win means for the program. South Florida is in that group of 5, so they're in the American former Big East conference members. South Florida going back way, I guess long ago now, almost. The last time they were in the Big East, Obama was the president. So I think it's been a minute since they were in a Power 5 or quote unquote Power 6 conference, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And this means a lot for the Bulls because in the NIL era, where you have all these transfers and it's really hard to have some continuity, for a smaller program like South Florida, this is where you're going to want to kind of make, I don't want to say make your final stand, but you're going to want to capitalize on this now because, yes, if they're as good, if Florida was as good as advertised, so they're an undisputed top 15 team in the country, and South Florida runs the table from here on out, I don't think it smells disaster for Florida, but it will bolster the resume for maybe even getting a bye for South Florida when it comes later in the season.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it really depends on what happens for South Florida this week because they have a huge matchup upcoming this weekend, which we'll break down a little bit later on in the show. But after that game this upcoming weekend, the schedule definitely favors this Bulls team, where they would probably be in the driver's seat to get that group of 5 spot in the college football playoff. So there is a really good shot for them if they want to make it to the college football playoff. Right now, they have the best resume out of every team that's currently ranked right now. They've beaten 2 ranked teams so far to start the season. Their blowout win over Boise State, and then this stunning victory over Florida. And then going back to the Gators, I mean, 13th ranked team in the country. There was a lot of hype going into the season because of what DJ Lagway and company did last season with this team. And now they come up on possibly the toughest schedule I think I've ever seen any team ever have to face. LSU upcoming this weekend. Then they go to Miami. They're home against Texas. They're at Texas A&M. Mississippi State, we'll talk about them in a little bit. That's not an easy win at this point, even being a home game for Florida. They will then have the Florida-Georgia game in Jacksonville against Georgia. They'll be at Kentucky, at Ole Miss, home against Tennessee, home against Florida State. That is a absolute brutal schedule for Florida to end the season.
And the crazy thing is, if it's the right games and the right scenarios, Florida can lose 2 games and make the college football playoffs.
Yeah, I guess it really depends on what 2 games they were to lose. But yeah, I mean, I guess the door's somewhat open, but they have to. I mean, they can't. I mean, it's going to be really impossible for them to win a lot of these games, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. So that's where the challenge comes. Uh, Especially if Florida is a 3 loss team, don't play in the SEC championship, and USF runs the table, it's still open for them. Now, the likelihood of that happening is slim to none, but it's
Yeah,
not zero, so we have to talk about it.
I think for Florida, I think the biggest concern is that DJ Lagway just hasn't really played well to start the season. Like the stat would indicate that, yeah, he's not playing bad right now, but they're just not scoring on a lot of these drives. And that showed in this game against South Florida. A lot of bad drives ending in field goals. And it cost them this game because they couldn't get into the end zone realistically. And now you're unranked going into next week. That's a little bit of a spoiler for later on, but now they're no longer ranked. You have to go on the road into Baton Rouge to take on LSU. That is a really tough game to which a lot of people are saying that they probably looked ahead in that last game against South Florida, and you could make the case that was definitely the reason maybe why they lost. But you have to give you have to nod your head to South Florida. This has been an impressive start to the season. And as you mentioned, they're in the driver's seat right now early, and it's only week 2, but they are right now in the driver's seat in that group of 5 position to make the college football playoff at the end of the year.
Yeah, because let's break it down. No one expected South Florida to be 2-0. Everyone expected, okay, Boise State, whatever, enjoy your group of 5 berth. I said it myself. So when they beat Boise State, it's like, oh, Boise State's bad. Now they beat Florida convincingly. And now we're saying, oh, well, Florida's bad. So what's it going to take for anyone to kind of like accept that USF is maybe good? Because I'm going to
Could
start
be
bringing
this
it up
week.
now.
Could be this week.
It could be this week. You're right.
We'll break that game down a little bit later on the show. They have a huge matchup upcoming this weekend, and a game which, if they were to pull off that win, there's pretty much no more denying of what they've been doing this season. But let's go on to our next game, Johnson. That was the only top 25 matchup we had between 2 ranked teams this past weekend, which was in Norman, Oklahoma, between number 15 Michigan and number 18 Oklahoma. This game was underwhelming for me in a little bit of standards because I was expecting Michigan to have a better offensive showing in this game after what we've heard about from Bryce Underwood and company and all the hype around him. And their offense was just flat for the majority of this game. The third quarter was pretty much the only quarter they got points in this one. And Bryce Underwood just really did not look great in this game. He was 9 of 24, 142 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. The lone Michigan touchdown came on a Justice Haynes rushing touchdown to start the third quarter. And Oklahoma has been getting some great contributions so far, not only from that defense so far. They played great in this game against Michigan, but John Mateer, the transfer quarterback out of Washington State, right now I think is right now the leading favorite to be the Heisman Trophy winner at the end of the season. He's been playing really good for this Oklahoma Sooners team, and he's got them at a 2-0 record after this 24-13 victory this past weekend over Michigan. They now move up in the polls. Michigan now moves a little bit down, but I'm wondering, Johnson, if this game plan for Michigan is somewhat troubling because it seems as if they're still coddling to Bryce Underwood being a freshman right now, and they're not really realistically letting him play to the standards that a lot of people think that he could be playing up to. I know it's early in the season, but that's still got to be troubling if you're a Michigan fan.
It's going to take time. 5-star freshmen that make an impact immediately at the quarterback position are becoming far and few between, especially in the current college football environment. There's many 6 and even 7-year guys throughout college football, and they don't want to leave. And it's probably going to be more and more common now because the JUCO guys now may get more eligibility when they come over from JUCO. So you may be seeing on a regular basis 5-6 year seniors all the time. And if you're a true freshman, 18 years old, it's going to be very hard to make an impact just because you're physically not ready yet.
Right. And I think if you look at the Michigan schedule, I mean, it's not that they're necessarily out of the college football playoff race. Like, they're still ranked right now. They're just on the inside before getting unranked. But the rest of their way, they only have one ranked opponent left, and that's of course the game to end the season against Ohio State. Every other game they have the rest of the way so far is an unranked opponent. They still have some tough road games at Nebraska, maybe at USC, depending on how they are playing this season. Michigan State has looked a little bit better so far to start the year as well, and they have a home game against Washington. So there are still some tough games for Michigan throughout the middle of that season where they could pick up everything that's been going wrong for them so far. I think they just have to let Bryce Underwood, let like open the playbook for him. I think that's what if I was Michigan. Like you have to let him you have to see what you have in him because you've invested so much money into getting this guy to decommit from LSU to bring him here to try to help fix an offense that was abysmal last season. And as of now, right now, the offense hasn't looked too much better from last year's team, which was a major problem for Michigan in that 2024 season. So if they let open the playbook and let Underwood at least open up where he could, run the ball to a best ability and find some receivers down the field, then Michigan's going to be in a better spot at the end of the season to where when they play that game against Ohio State, then you finally can figure out, okay, we know what Bryce Underwood is. Now, how are we going to use him to try to beat Ohio State and potentially make the college football playoff if they are at that point in the season, and maybe even make the Big Ten championship if they are able to do so?
There is a scenario where Ohio State and Michigan end up playing in the Big Ten championship game, and
Right.
Michigan beats them twice. So I think that would get them in, right?
It
Let's be
has to.
real.
Yeah, it has to.
So again, not close for Michigan, but just highly unlikely. I did not have Michigan making the college football playoffs, so I'm not really expecting them to. But I think we can go into our next game now, Nick. We can talk about Mississippi State versus Arizona State over here. And can I say SEC bias much?
Define SEC bias.
Went in the week saying like, hey, Arizona State -6.5 is an awful line. I don't care how good they are perceived. It's still early in the year. Rankings really don't matter that much. And it's an SEC team. And I know, okay, it doesn't have like the firepower it does 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago. However, but the bottom of that conference is leagues ahead of the middle of most conferences. And the Pac-12 is just one giant middle to me. And Mississippi State is kind of like towards the bottom middle of the SEC. So we knew it was going to be a kind of an evenly matched
Right.
matchup, and they proved to be a better team at the end of the day.
Well, keep in mind last year when Arizona State played Mississippi State, this is the same team that made the college football playoff. Arizona State only beat Mississippi State by a touchdown, so it was a very close game last year, despite the fact that the Bulldogs finished the year 2-10. So you knew it was going to be close, and the way it started, it didn't even look like that was going to be the case. Mississippi State jumped out to a 17-0 lead in this game. Their defense was on fire to start this first half. They went into halftime with a 17-3 lead, and then things kind of unraveled for them in the second half. They couldn't stop the run. That was pretty much the only reason why Arizona State got back into this game was their rushing attack in this one, and their defense played a lot better in the second half up until the final 30 seconds of this game. Arizona State took the lead late with a touchdown to go up 20-17, and then I still boggles my mind how they let this touchdown happen, but a big touchdown pass at the end of this game for Mississippi State with about 30 something seconds left in regulation. I'm trying to make sure I get the right amount of time for that touchdown. It was with 30 exact seconds. Brendan Thomas gets the touchdown pass from Blake Shapen, and they go up 24-20, and they hang on for a 24-21. The biggest win for Mississippi State football probably since 2020, when they knocked off the defending national champion LSU in the first week of the season. And it's a win that they're hoping that maybe can put them on the right track to get back to being a competitive team in the SEC. And on the other flip side of things for Arizona State, it's definitely a tough loss, especially considering the aspirations they had after what they did all of last season. They're still ranked in the terms of, I know they're not in the rankings right now, but in the terms of the Big 12, they're probably they're still the higher echelon with Iowa State and the Texas Techs, the teams that are currently ranked from the Big 12 in the top 25. I think the problem for Arizona State in this game was they couldn't pass the ball, which everyone was expecting them to do. Sam Levitt's been, a guy that's been registered as a solid quarterback that can help you win games, but he just struggled in this game overall, and that's got to be a little bit concerning if you're a Sun Devils fan.
Yeah, and one word, cowbells.
Cowboys definitely could play a factor too.
Cowbells definitely, listen, that was that home environment. They were loud. The crowd was into it.
Yeah.
And making them a one touchdown underdog at home in the SEC was quite frankly a slap in the face, and they defended that with honor.
Yeah.
They really showed out for the conference. It's better for the strength of schedule. And now Arizona State does the let's say Pac-12, the Big 12, a huge disservice here.
I think I said Pac-12, so I think that's on me. I think I actually said Pac-12 when I was talking about them. I don't remember. I have short-term memory, but yeah, I mean, it's still weird to say they're in the Big 12 anyway because they're still a Pac-12 team at heart. But yeah, I think we'll have to see. Again, we said this at the beginning of the season. That conference is still wide open, in my opinion. I know right now Utah's been looking good so far. Texas Tech has been so far so good, and I'm forgetting the other team, Iowa State. They've all looked good so far throughout the first couple of weeks of the season. I think it really comes down to now how does Arizona State bounce back from this loss? It's possible they can because they still have a very good, head coach and Kenny Dillingham. Levitt, if he bounces back from this bad performance, will keep them in games. And can they now utilize this 1-2 rushing attack that they had this past weekend? We'll see. I think they're still in good hands. But yeah, definitely a little bit of a cause for concern. The way they started this game, at least they've at least fought back towards the end. But that last touchdown was just a really tough one to give up with after the deficit they had to come back from in this game.
All right, and that's going to bring us now to our next game. And let's talk about Baylor winning in double OT versus SMU. Another game which it's that Southern. I know it's Big 12, but SMU wasn't ready for the bright lights, like I said.
SMU, man, I mean, the way they lost this game to Johnson was just
heartbreaking,
troubling, and heartbreaking. Yeah, they had a chance to win it at the end of regulation. It was about a 60-yard field goal. I think they were going for towards the end of the regulation. It went wide right. There was just no shot it was going to be made whatsoever. So they go to overtime. Both teams traded touchdowns to start overtime. SMU then had to started with the ball to start the second overtime. They had to go 3 and out. They had to kick a field goal, and again, they unfortunately missed the field goal. It went wide right again, and that set up Baylor for an opportunity to kick the game-winning field goal. They got the job done. They bounced back from their loss to Auburn in Week 1 and get a 48-45 shootout victory over the Mustangs. And I mean, the stats just in this game were impeccable for both these teams. Kind of what you expected when you see these two teams, and one of them being a Big 12 team, of course, the other one being now a newly found ACC team. Sawyer Robertson from Baylor, 440 yards, 4 passing touchdowns. Bryson Washington with 115 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. In the receiving game, Josh Cameron had 151 yards and 2 touchdowns. Ashton Hawkins had 145 yards receiving. And on the other side, thanks for SMU, who obviously was in the college football playoff last season with Kevin Jennings and company. Jennings had a pretty solid game outside of the 1 interception, 295 yards, 3 passing touchdowns. TJ Harden on the ground had 115 yards, 3 touchdowns. Romello Brinson, of course, had a monster catch in overtime to keep the game going, 126 yards and 2 touchdowns. But for the Mustangs, it just wasn't enough. They lose this game. They fall out of the top 25 polls with this loss to Baylor. It's a big win for Baylor because we just talked about the Big 12. That could put Baylor into the talk of maybe being one of those teams that competes in this conference to maybe compete for a conference championship at the end of the year. And for SMU, it's going to get a little bit tougher because, with the way Florida State's been playing so far this season, Clemson hasn't looked great so far this year either, but they're still a team to contend with. And Miami, of course, has also looked pretty good so far. So for SMU right now, they're looking right now to be maybe the 4th best team at best so far in that conference. And it's going to be really tough for them to even get back to the college football playoff if they have a chance to do so this season.
I think you kind of summed up everything, Nick. So I'll let you bring us to the next game too, because I don't really have much more to add here.
Well, that was the last game I had on our schedule. I think the next thing we can really talk about is the top 25 polls.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go into it.
So, as I mentioned, we had a couple new teams in the top 25 polls, as well as teams falling out. The teams that dropped out were Arizona State, Florida, and SMU. The new teams that we have in the polls this week, we have South Florida, of course, after that win at Gainesville. They're number 18 in the country. We have Auburn now in the top 25 at number 24. Missouri is at number 25. So some SEC teams getting in there at the bottom half of the rankings. Michigan fell down 8 spots to number 23 after their loss to Oklahoma. We saw as well Clemson falling out of the top 10 after their scare against Troy this past weekend. They were down 17-0 in that game at one point. They had to fight, or excuse me, 16-0 in that game. They had to fight their way back to get the win, but they have now looked good the first 2 weeks of the season. So they drop out of the top 10 to number 12. Florida State has looked pretty good in their first 2 games. They jump up from 12 to 10, or excuse me, from 14 to 10 now in the top 25. Georgia fell down 2 spots after not playing great this past weekend, so they're now number 6. Oregon moves up 2 spots. They are number 4. I gotta say, they might have single-handedly probably cost Mike Gundy his job at Oklahoma State. I had to get the right stat. I forgot the exact year was, Johnson. I want to say it was 1907 or 1910. I forgot the exact year. But that was the worst loss in Oklahoma State University football history since that date. I think it was like 108 years since they've lost that badly. So it just goes to show you how badly that program has fallen these last couple of years. And Oregon really just dominated them in every aspect of that game. Other than that, the other big rankings, the jumpers, we see Oklahoma move up 5 spots to number 13. Tennessee moves up 7 spots to 15 ahead of their big matchup this weekend. Utah moved up to 20 from 5 spots, and that's pretty much it. Everyone else pretty much moving up 3 spots after each, after those middle teams fell out of the polls. That being the Arizona States, the Floridas, and the SMUs. So every team took advantage of that, and now they head into week number 3. A lot better positioning in terms of the college football playoff this early in the season.
Yeah, now let's talk about, again, SEC bias over here. 11 of 16 teams in the SEC ranked in this poll. So the 11th best team in the SEC, you could be the 11th best team in the
crazy.
SEC, but you're number 25 overall, which is crazy. It's not going to stay like this, but there's a couple of games upcoming which might kind of turn things on their head. The only, again, we're going to not shame these teams, but the only SEC teams not ranked right now would be the Florida Gators, the Kentucky Wildcats, Vanderbilt Commodores.
And Florida is one of the first teams out.
Yeah, Mississippi State Bulldogs and Arkansas Razorbacks. So you're if all these SEC team wins and Florida wins next week, very, very well may be back in the top 25, which would be kind of crazy to have 75% of your conference ranked.
I know. Yeah, I mean,
it's given 2010 Big East vibes right now.
Yeah, I mean that's the state of football we're in right now with this conference realignment. This is bound to happen at some point.
Yeah, and it is a little bit of a shame for those who really love the game because you think about, okay, the SEC is doing this, right? But then you take a look at the Big 12, right? You have a couple teams that are ranked right now. You have Utah, like you mentioned, Texas Tech, Iowa State, but like Iowa State's your best team right now at 14, and you have schools like West Virginia that are losing the teams of Ohio, the Ohio Bobcats of the MAC.
Yeah,
Just they're scheduling like a when you have teams in your conference that are scheduling like a MACtion school, maybe it is time to join the MAC.
Yeah, I didn't watch any of that game. I think I called like the last 20 seconds. That was bad.
And then probably the second best conference in the or I guess the most top heavy conference would be the Big Ten because the top 5 in the Big Ten can compete with anyone in the country. So they're probably the best teams in the country. The top 4 teams in the Big Ten, like as an aggregate,
that would be Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, and I would say Illinois because Illinois looked dominant.
Yeah, they looked over Duke.
Weekend.
They just absolutely killed them.
Absolutely.
But the bottom of that Big Ten, oh man! As much as I love my Rutgers and I want to cheer for Northwestern, but
it can't be worse than Northwestern.
Yeah,
and UCLA lost to UNLV this past weekend.
Yeah, that's tough too. But UNLV is doing things, and then the ACC, it's kind of like a worse version of the Big Ten because they have a couple players in there right now. If they're legit, Clemson, Miami, Florida State, But then the bottom of it, like Virginia Tech, and then you have
Stanford.
Stanford
Yeah.
and Virginia. Like it's just SMU this past week, like we mentioned before. It's just very rough at the bottom of that conference. So
Yeah.
uh, it's going to be very interesting to see how the infighting goes once the conference play is done.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we know going into next year, there's going to be a couple of teams now in the Pac-12, that being teams from, I believe, the Mountain West, and I think one from the Sun Belt or two from the Sun Belt.
Yeah, I'm excited for the new Pac
Yeah.
12. I think, adding these teams, I don't know how they're going to be in college football immediately, but I know in college basketball, with Gonzaga being there, it's going to give the brand
Yeah,
immediate
that will help
recognition.
them.
They're going to be on the CW. It's like, okay, these teams aren't getting paid millions of dollars. However, they're getting exposure, which is what you want in a new conference. When the Big East was first being made back 45 years ago, and again, I know it's mainly college basketball now, but when they're being made, was being formed 45, 50 years ago, they went to ESPN because, hey, we can't give you money, but we can give you exposure. And that's exactly what a new conference needs. So the way I look at it for the new Pac-12 is there won't be a bar in America that won't have access to, the CW. It's a public, it's a public channel. So every single bar can watch a Gonzaga basketball game, or if they could watch a Oregon State football game. It's huge for the conference because you're not going to be downloading the Mountain West app, or you're not going to be behind an ESPN Plus paywall. So it's a step in the right direction for hopefully a great new conference.
Yeah, I can't really disagree with that. Hopefully, it does lead to better things for that Pac-12. And when it comes to basketball, we'll see what happens with football, because as of now, they're still technically one of those group of 5 teams or conferences where they would be getting that last spot in the college football playoffs. So maybe that does help the conference at the end of the day. But I guess we'll have to see and find a way, wait out. Maybe they can add more teams along the way too. It's very possible they do that, because it seems like as if the Mountain West right now is losing a majority of those teams anyway. So they might be that might be a conference that might not be anymore soon, the way it's going. I don't know.
They're
I don't
post
know
from
if
the
that's the
bottom.
case.
That's how usually they'll just take the West Coast teams that are good, and
Right.
they'll take the you know whatever teams are good in that region. They'll take the Conference USA teams that are good. They take you know whatever teams are good in that region that are not like that are kind of on the verge of like going up one. That's what they'll take.
Right.
They'll take teams like let's say out of the let me give you an example here. Just let's say out of Conference USA, right? Like I know it's Mountain West, whatever, so they really can't take anything. But you could take something like a UTEP or a New Mexico State. Again, not really big football programs. However, they kind of have big names behind them, at least at that level. I wouldn't even know who else they would take from the those other schools.
And that, yeah,
It's really,
it would have to
it's
be the
really,
Mountain West schools.
it's really slim pickings. But
Yeah.
maybe I can't even say if it takes some MAC schools because it's mainly in the Midwest. So I don't think anyone's gonna want to give that away because it's mainly teams in Ohio and in Michigan, plus UMass for some reason. But we digress. Let's go into the mushing hour now.
Do we have to?
I think we have to because I won a perfect 6-0 last week. If you had parlayed my picks, you would have won $5,300. And of course, I don't do that.
Yeah.
How'd you do, buddy?
You could just tell the tone of my voice. It's not been a good start this season.
Listen. I'm bound to lose some now at this point. Like
I know, but you know what it is.
I'm overdue.
We're gonna record our NFL episode also tonight at some point, and NFL put me in a bad mood with the way some of the bad beats happened this week. We'll talk about that later. Talk about that on our next episode. Be sure to tune in for that episode. The college football picks, I gotta admit, I'm just not picking good so far. SMU, they lost in overtime by 3. Duke was got absolutely destroyed by Illinois, and that game was close for a little bit until the fourth quarter. Ole Miss, I mean, do I have to explain more about that game? I think the line moved to 8.5, and I think they won by 7. So I guess it's not as bad of a beat, but it was still not a great beat. One to lose. Arizona State, I should have known better. I think I was just trying to pick my record up from week 1. At least I got the Iowa game right. I guess you really can't go wrong with 3.5 in an Iowa game. And then Michigan, I should have known better too in that game. That was pretty much my hard picking Michigan because I put them in my college football playoffs. So we'll see. I'm 4-10 in the year. It's been pretty bad. I don't know. We'll see what happens this week. What's our first game, Johnson?
All right, the first game we have number 12 Clemson going to Georgia Tech. Clemson is a 3.5 point favorite on the road, and 54.5 is the slated over under. Clemson has to get it done. They haven't looked impressive at all. This is the game they get it done. So give me Clemson minus 3.5.
Well, this is huge for Georgia Tech because they are, I believe, the first ACC team out of the polls right now. So if they win this game, they'll be ranked into the top 25 polls for sure. The problem for them in this game, Johnson, is going to be, is Haynes King going to play? Because he did not play in Georgia Tech's last game. So the health of him is definitely going to be something to monitor going into this one. Now, I've already spoken about how I don't like 3.5 lines, and I've had enough of getting bad beats at this point. So I'm just gonna take Clemson straight. I'm gonna take the money line. I'm not losing by a half a point. So just give me the Tigers money line in this game. I can't do it again.
All right,
Yeah.
there you have it. No money line bets this week. No spreads this week for you.
There might be a possibility I do straights and no spreads at this point because I'm just trying to get my record up at this point. It's too early for me to be losing this many games. But we'll see. Maybe I change my strategy as the season goes on. Our second game that we have goes into the SEC. A very interesting matchup in the SEC this week as we have Vanderbilt going on the road to take on number 11 South Carolina. The Gamecocks are a 4.5 point favorite, 48.5 the over under for this game.
Give me Vandy plus 4.5 to cover here on the road. South Carolina has looked lackluster, and again, I know this isn't the best way to compare teams. However, they both played Virginia Tech a week after each other, so or a week in between games. And South Carolina struggled, maybe because it was the first game of the season, but Vandy dominated them. So
Yeah, Vandy.
That's any indication. Yeah. At least give me Vandy plus 4.5.
I probably don't have any good reasoning to take this, and this is probably going to cost me another game. More than likely, I take this pick, Johnson. And it's going to end up as a field goal win for South Carolina. I'm just going to take South Carolina minus 4.5. I think for me, a tough road environment at South Carolina like that's not an easy place to play at if you're Vanderbilt. Diego Pavia and company have done a great job these last 2 seasons building that Vanderbilt football program back up, or at least trying to build it into something. I just think coming off the high of beating Virginia Tech that badly on the road last week, I don't think you could duplicate that twice. I think it's going to be really tough, especially in a tougher environment at South Carolina. So I got the Gamecocks to cover the 4.5 in this game.
All right, there you have it. The next game we have on our list here is Florida at number 3 LSU. So the Gators go into Death Valley, where LSU is an 8.5 point home favorite, and the over/under slate at 48.5. Give me LSU minus 8.5. They've won a big game already this season, and Florida has no reason to give me a reason to actually lay the points, because if they can only lay 16 against South Florida, what's the machine that Brian Kelly has run down in Louisiana going to do to them?
Yeah, this game scares me a lot because, obviously Florida just had probably their most recent embarrassing loss since the days when they lost to Old Dominion. I think I don't remember when. I don't know exactly what year that was, but I do remember them losing a game against Old Dominion I think it was a decade ago that probably happened. And you go into this game against LSU where you realistically you're pretty much already out of the top 25 polls. Something's got to give for you in this game. The last time they went to Baton Rouge, they lost by 17 too, so that's something to also keep in mind. And if you look at the history of these 2 games, the series for these teams, a lot of points do get scored in this series, especially when they go to Baton Rouge. I'm going to stay away in terms of the points. And again, I probably don't have a good reason to take this as my pick. I'm going to go with Florida plus the 8.5. I think Florida is going to have to start early in this game. They're going to have to make sure that they don't let the game get out of hand quick. If it gets out of if LSU strikes first, it's probably going to get ugly. If Florida is able to score first, I think Florida can hang around. They probably lose by a touchdown. I'd be kind of stunned I honestly think it would be kind of stunning if Florida lost this game by double digits. So I'll take them to cover the 8.5, but I'm not really confident in it happening. So take that with a grain of salt. That's all I'm going to say about that pick. Our next game of this week, we have our first of 3 top 25 matchups this weekend, and it's a game that at the beginning of the year it probably wasn't going to be one that we were going to have scheduled on our calendars, but it is scheduled this week as number 18 South Florida goes on the road. Technically at a road game, but they go on the road to take on number 5 Miami. Miami is a 17.5 point favorite. The over under 56.5.
Oh man, this is a tough one. Give me South Florida plus 17.5 here. They're playing. It's not like they're going far. They're staying in state.
Right.
It's the USF and Miami. It's not that far, so it's like you're gonna have a mixed crowd. I know you have the season ticket holders, so you're gonna have an initial advantage. I know the football fan base in Miami is bigger, but you'd be crazy if you don't think you have 10, 15,000 people showing up for this game, at least for South Florida. So if you can get a quarter of the stadium to
Yeah, they had a good portion of fans that in Gainesville last Saturday too.
so you're gonna be crazy if you don't think more of them can even show up now because it's gonna be closer. You're not going even up towards the Panhandle. You're gonna be in South Florida still. They play in Raymond James Stadium, so it's literally just across. It's like an hour and a half away, or not really an hour and a half, but you know what I mean. It's not that far. Tampa Bay and Miami.
Right.
It's gonna be very manageable for a drive there. Expect a lot of South Florida fans to be there. It's probably the biggest game of the last 10 years for this program. I would have to go back further to kind of look to see what's been bigger. Definitely the biggest since I've joined this conference. And yeah, this give me USF plus 17.5 here. I think it's the easy one here.
I'm going to play the spoiler. I'm going to be the Debbie Downer for this pick. I think this ride of South Florida is going to it's going to reach a certain halt. Not saying that this is going to be the end of their college football playoff hopes, but I feel as if, they're riding such a high right now that they realistically think that nothing realistically could go wrong. I just think this Miami team is a lot different than the Miami team we saw last season. I think everything that could go wrong for them last year has been fixed this season. I'm going to go with Miami to cover the 17.5. I think they win this game pretty convincingly. I think because right now, I think if you look at it, I don't think Miami's right now being considered the favorite in the ACC by a lot of people. Considering the way that Florida State has played so far in the first 2 games, I think a lot of people think that the Seminoles might be the team to beat in that conference. I think Miami needs to make a statement to make sure that that is not the case. And considering that they have this game and then they have Florida upcoming afterwards, I think this is the time where if you're Miami, this is the perfect spot for you to make that statement early in the season. So I will take Miami to cover the 17.5. It's not a one that I'm also confident in. So again, you probably shouldn't be tailing me. The good thing I like about your pick, Johnson, that could have swayed me is that Miami does have Florida the week, not the week after, but that's their next game. So they could look ahead to that game.
The last time South Florida was ranked 18 and they played the number 5 opponent, it was on the road and they won 21-13. Do you know what team they beat? It was September 28th, 2007.
I was going to say it was definitely that 07 season.
Yeah. In the Big East.
I know it's a Big East opponent. I was going to say West Virginia.
Yep, on the money.
Okay.
So yeah, this is their biggest game since 2007.
I always watch so many documentaries about that 2007 season. It's probably the most unprecedented, season of college football we ever had, just with the amount of upsets and drama that happened that one year. So yeah, that'd be fun if they actually did. I mean, listen, it would be crazy if they pulled this off again. I just think at some point, it's like it's Cinderella story. Like the slipper's gonna eventually going to fall off at some point for this team. I think it's probably going to happen in this game against the Canes. So give me Miami to cover that one. What's our next game?
The next game we have here is my Texas A&M Aggies, ranked 16 in the country, going on the road in the South Bend to take on number 8 Notre Dame, where they are a 6.5-point favorite and the over/under is 50.5. Give me the Aggies to cover here, plus 6.5. I think they'll lose by about a touchdown. So 6 points. So I think they barely cover. And this is Notre Dame's last and only chance for a real non-conference win. I know they don't have a conference, but I think after this is kind of a joke. So
yeah, after this for Notre Dame, they don't really. I don't think they play another ranked opponent the rest of the season. So
unless one of them magically gets ranked, this is
right.
it.
And if they lose this game, they drop to 0-2, and it might be impossible for them to even make the college football playoff. I think because
Yeah,
of that,
this is a must win for Notre Dame.
right? I think because of that being the case and it being a must win, I think the Irish come out with this one, playing this one inspired. I will ask one thing: do we know the status of Marcel Reed going into this game?
Not currently.
We don't know the status of it. That does worry me a little bit because if they don't have Marcel Reed playing in this game, I'm not so certain how they're going to fare, especially on the road in a very, very tough environment at South Bend. I will take the Irish to cover this game to -6.5. I'm just kind of worried with the quarterback situation right now with Texas A&M. If Reed plays, I think they definitely could keep this game back and forth and keep it close. But I think this is a proven game for Notre Dame, just like I mentioned with Miami. I think they have to prove something in this game because if they drop to 0-2, you might as well end your season this early on. If you get the win, then you at least keep yourselves in the top 10, and you pretty much say to yourselves, all right, we just have to not have a Northern Illinois incident happen again this season, and we're going to make the college football playoff with ease. So I'll take the Irish to cover the 6.5 in South Bend this week against Texas A&M. And then our final game of the week, it's a big matchup in the SEC. Number 6 Georgia going on the road to Knoxville to take on number 15 Tennessee. Georgia a 3.5-point favorite. The over/under 49.5.
Give me the University of Tennessee to cover by 3.5 points.
Okay. Well, this is probably a spoiler from what I did earlier with Clemson. 3.5. I'm going to do the same thing with Georgia. I'm going to take the money line in this game. I think they had a bad game last week against Austin Peay, I believe is it P or Pay? You would know.
It's Austin Peay.
It's Austin Peay. Okay, so I was right. Austin Peay. So it wasn't Georgia standards for them playing football in that game. Tennessee has looked pretty good the first couple of weeks of the season, and I would know for first-hand experience from what happened in week 1. Home game, I like this matchup for both of these teams. I like it so much, Johnson, that I think I'm going to do a on-spot double pick. I initially had just one pick for this game. I'm going to go with Georgia money line. I'm going to take the over for this game too. I think this could be a very high-scoring affair between these two teams. Gunnar Stockton versus Joey Aguilar from Tennessee. Both these quarterbacks are going to look to prove something in this game. I think points could be aplenty in this one, but I'll go with the Bulldogs just straight money line in this matchup over Tennessee in Knoxville this upcoming Saturday. And that's going to do it for our Mushing Hour here in week number 3 of this college football season. Johnson, any final thoughts or any comments you would like to make before we wrap this one up?
You just take us home.
I will take us home. That is going to do it for this week's edition of the All Gas No Break Sports Show. Week number 3 of the college football season is just around the corner this upcoming weekend. Number 12 Clemson goes to Georgia Tech. Vandy will take on number 11 South Carolina. Florida goes on the road to number 3 LSU. Number 18 South Florida. Number 5 Miami. Number 16 Texas A&M. Number 8 Notre Dame. And then finally number 6 Georgia and number 15 Tennessee will take place this upcoming Saturday in the college football world. This has been Nicholas Pavona, joined alongside, as always, by my co-host Andrew Johnson for the All Gas No Break Sports Show. Have a great rest of your week.